And we begin in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where crisis talks to ensure a peaceful political transition have been suspended. They will resume on Wednesday, the day after the end of President Joseph Kabila's last legal term in office. The chief mediator says no deal has been reached after 11 hours of talks between Kabila's ruling party and opposition groups. The Congolese Constitution bans presidents from serving a third term, but President Kabila has shown no sign of stepping down and no elections have yet been planned. The 45-year-old president has signaled his desire to remain in power until a successor is chosen in an election. Some opposition leaders accuse President Kabila of delaying the vote and want him to hand over power once his term expires. Well, CCTV's Clementine Logan is now joining me on the line from Kinshasa. Clementine, the peace talks in the DRC are now scheduled to resume on Wednesday. What is the likely impact of this decision, given the push to have President Kabila relinquish power by Monday, December 19th?
Well, as you said, Beatrice, the major sticking point of these talks has really been when to hold the country's elections, which were due in November, and what happened until then. The opposition has accused the government of not being willing to budge from its position from the start. They say they suggested a transitional government rule until elections next year, but that this was rejected. And the presidential majority says Kabila is permitted to stay in power until elections are organised. Many here had hoped, and indeed the international community as well, for a political and peaceful solution, but that compromise now seems further from being reached. And of course, the 19th, which has been branded by some here as a sort of D-Day, is hours away now. One influential opposition leader, Felix Tshisekedi, has already branded the talks a failure and says the ball is now in the court of the Congolese people. Quite what that means for people here in Kinshasa, they're not yet sure, but many are anticipating social unrest and a repeat of the protests we saw in September. Some are stocking up on supplies and planning to stay at home tomorrow.
Well, Clementine, what security plans, though, are in place to avert violence after the expiry of President Kabila's last legal term in office?
Well, there is a sort of uneasy calm here in Kinshasa. The security presence has visibly been stepped up. You can see police and soldiers in the streets across the city. Checkpoints have also been set up around Kinshasa at night. The UN peacekeeping force here, MONUSCO, told us earlier on that they've also deployed extra personnel and equipment to try and maintain order should violence erupt like it did in September. Western diplomats are also urging non-essential nationals to leave the country, and in anticipation perhaps of organised protests, the government has ordered telecoms companies to shut down phone and social network sites at midnight, so many are also bracing themselves for that. We just came from speaking to an opposition advisor to Etienne Tshisekedi, an opposition leader, and he did tell us to brace ourselves and that anything can really happen come tomorrow.
Right, Clementine Logan for us there in Kinshasa.